Imagine a physical key. And I don't mean for your front door or, your car. I want you to imagine a key for your entire digital existence. A single object that, if you don't physically touch it with your own finger, makes it mathematically impossible for a hacker to get into your email, your bank account, your crypto.
Even if they have your password,
Right.
even if they have your username, even if they've somehow managed to clone your phone number.
That is the promise we're looking at today. It sounds like something out of a spy movie, but we are digging into a stack of research that suggests this shouldn't be niche tech. It should probably be the standard for everyone.
Absolutely. We're talking about moving security from the ether, the cloud, where hackers live and thrive,
Yeah.
and bringing it into the physical world where you live.
We've got a lot to cover. Our main guide for this deep dive is just an incredibly comprehensive technical breakdown by Maxim Anisimov from the website bytework.com. We've also cross-referenced his findings with user reviews, some white papers, and some pretty sobering security analyses.
And the mission is clear. Can we finally kill the password? And more importantly, we need to understand the hardware that claims it can do it, the YubiKey.
So let's start with the big question. I feel like most people listening have a system. They have a password. Maybe it's password 123. Maybe it's something complex. And they probably use two-factor authentication. They get a text message code. Why isn't that enough? Why do I need to carry around a USB stick in my pocket?
It's a totally fair question. For a decade, we've been told that text message code is the gold standard. But the reality, traditional passwords are just the weakest link because they're stored on servers. And if a server gets breached, and let's be honest, that happens, like daily, your password is out there.
Right, but that's what the text message is for, right?
Right.
It's the second wall.
It is a wall, but honestly, it's kind of made of paper. The research we're looking at, especially the points Anisimov raises, it highlights this massive vulnerability called SIM swapping.
I've heard horror stories about this. This is where your phone just starts working, right?
Exactly. It's terrifyingly simple.
Yeah.
A hacker calls your mobile carrier. They pretend to be you, using some basic info they bought on the dark web, and they convince customer service to port your number to a new SIM card, a SIM card that they control.
So my phone goes dead, and their phone lights up with my number.
Precisely. And suddenly, all those login codes for your bank, for your email password reset, they're not going to you anymore. They're going straight to the hacker.
Okay, that scares me. But what about the apps, like Google Authenticator, the ones with the little spinning codes? Those are generated on my phone, so a hacker can't steal them with a phone call, can they?
They are better. Much, much better. But they are not bulletproof. The issue there is phishing. If a hacker sends you a link to a fake website that looks exactly like your bank or Gmail, and you type in your username, your password, and that 6-digit code,
The hacker just grabs it in real time.
and uses it immediately. It's
Yeah.
a man-in-the-middle attack. You're basically handing them the keys.
So the digital solutions all have this fatal flaw. They rely on me, the human, not being tricked. And we are very easily tricked.
And that is where the YubiKey changes the fundamental equation. It shifts security from something you know, like a code, to something you have,
Yeah.
a physical object.
This is that human presence concept you see in the source material. Can you break that down for us?
It's so simple, it's almost deceptive. The YubiKey requires a physical touch to authorize a login. It has a capacitive sensor, that little gold disc on the side. When you log in, the device blinks. You have to physically tap it.
So a hacker in a basement somewhere.
Cannot reach through the internet and tap the USB stick that's plugged into your laptop. It creates a physical air gap that digital attacks just cannot cross.
I love that. It's an analog solution to a very digital problem. But I want to get under the hood, because Maxim Anisimov's article goes deep on the tech. When I touch that button, what is actually happening? Is it just typing a really long password for me?
No, and that's a really common misconception. If it were just typing a password, a hacker could, theoretically record that and play it back. This is much more sophisticated. It uses protocols called FIDO2 and WebAuthn.
Okay, alphabet soup. Translate that for us.
Think of it like a challenge-response puzzle. It's based on public key cryptography. When you register your YubiKey with a site like Google, the key generates a public lock and gives it to Google. But the private key, the only thing that can open that lock, it lives inside a secure chip on the YubiKey itself.
And the critical part is that the private key never leaves the device.
Never. It cannot be copied. It cannot be extracted. Even if you plugged it into a computer riddled with viruses, the virus can't read the key. The chip just won't give it up.
But here's the part that blew my mind when I was reading through this, the concept of origin binding. This seems to be the killer feature against phishing.
It is the absolute aha moment.
Yeah.
Origin binding just means the YubiKey is smart enough to know who it is talking to.
Give me an example of how that stops a hack.
Okay, so let's say you get an email. It looks like it's from Coinbase. It says, urgent, verify your account. You panic, you click the link. The website looks identical to Coinbase. But the URL is actually c0inbase.com with a 0 instead of an O.
A classic trick. Our eyes just skip right over that.
Right. If you were using a text code, you'd type it in and your account would be gone. But with the YubiKey, when you go to tap that button, the browser sends the domain name to the key. The key looks at it and says, wait a minute, I registered this with Coinbase.com. You are on c0base.com. I don't know you.
And it just refuses to work.
It stays completely silent. It refuses to sign the cryptographic request. It literally saves you from yourself. You can be totally convinced you're on the right site, but the hardware will not let you make that mistake.
That is incredible. It removes the human error element almost completely. And looking at the compatibility list, this isn't niche anymore. Google, Microsoft, Apple, Binance, Coinbase. You can even use it to log into your actual computer, right?
Yep, Windows and Mac login. It's becoming the universal key for all the heavy hitters.
Now, I kept seeing this buzzword, passkeys. We hear Apple and Google talking about this all the time. Is a passkey the same thing as a YubiKey?
They're cousins. Passkeys are the industry's big attempt to finally kill the password. So instead of typing a password and then using the key is the login.
So I just plug it in and I'm good to go.
Almost. Multi-factor still applies. You'd plug it in, enter a PIN code, which, by the way, is stored in the key, not on a server, and then you touch it. It's what we call a passwordless login. The YubiKey 5 series is built specifically for this future.
I noticed in the reviews that the 5 NFC version gets a lot of love.
Yeah, the cool factor there is high. With the NFC version, you don't even need to plug it into your phone. You just tap the YubiKey against the back of your iPhone or Android, and the NFC chip does the rest. It feels like magic.
Okay, but there was a specific detail in the sources about storage limits that confused me. Something about resident keys. Can you clear that up?
Good catch. This is a technical nuance, but it really matters. A resident key is when the entire credential, like your username and everything, lives on the YubiKey itself. The YubiKey 5 series has a limit of about 25 of these.
25? That seems incredibly low. I have way more than 25 accounts.
It sounds low, but you have to distinguish between resident keys, used for that passwordless login, and standard U2F. For standard U2F, where you type a password first, the storage is effectively unlimited.
Oh, okay. So I can use it for hundreds of accounts as a second factor, but only about 25 for that no password at all experience?
Exactly. You prioritize. You use those 25 slots for your most critical accounts, your main email, your bank, your primary crypto exchange. Everything else uses the standard method.
That makes so much more sense. Okay, speaking of crypto, we have to talk about something that confuses a lot of our listeners. YubiKey versus hardware wallets.
This is so crucial. I see this confusion on Reddit all the time. People buy a YubiKey and ask, so how do I send my Bitcoin to this?
So let's settle it. Is a YubiKey a crypto wallet?
No. Hard no. A YubiKey is an authentication device. Its only job is to prove who you are. A hardware wallet, like a ledger or a Trezor, is a signing device for blockchain transactions. Its job is to hold the keys that control your money.
I like analogies. How should we picture this?
Think of it like a bank. The YubiKey is the key to the front door of the bank building. It gets you into your Binance account, your Coinbase dashboard. But once you're inside, the hardware wallet is the actual safety deposit box in the vault where your assets are kept.
That clicks. So I use the YubiKey to log into Binance safely. But if I want to take my Bitcoin off Binance and hold it myself, I send it to my ledger.
That's it, exactly. You use the YubiKey to lock the front door of the exchange, but you use the ledger to actually hold the funds yourself.
Are there any exceptions? The article mentioned OpenPGP or something.
Technically, yeah, for the super nerds out there. A YubiKey can store PGP keys and be used for some signing tasks.
Yeah.
But it is not designed to hold a portfolio of cryptocurrencies. Do not buy a YubiKey expecting to see your Bitcoin balance on it.
Clear enough. Now, we've painted this as a fortress, but we need to be realistic. Let's talk risks. Is it bulletproof? Can a YubiKey be hacked?
Look, in the security world, we never say impossible. But remote hacking of the YubiKey hardware itself, it's as close to impossible as you can get. However, there is a dirty secret that Maxim Anisimov's article on bikework.com talks about.
I read this part. It's called session hijacking. This was the one thing that made me realize this isn't some magic wand.
It's the nuance.
Mm.
The YubiKey protects the login. It makes sure you are the one opening the door.
Mm.
But imagine you open the door to your house and there's already a thief hiding in the closet.
The thief being malware on my computer.
Right. If your computer's already infected because you downloaded a sketchy file, that malware is inside. When you log in with your YubiKey, the website gives your browser a session cookie, a little VIP pass.
And the malware just steals the VIP pass.
Instantly. It grabs that cookie and sends it to the hacker. The hacker can then use that cookie to pretend to be you. They don't need your YubiKey anymore because the website thinks you're already logged in.
So the YubiKey stops someone from breaking in the front door, but it doesn't clean the house of pests that are already there.
Correct. It just emphasizes that basic digital hygiene antivirus, not clicking weird links, is still absolutely required.
There's another risk that came up in the reviews we looked at, and it's not about the tech, but about where you buy it.
Oh, this is a major red flag. I cannot overstate this. Do not, I repeat, do not buy YubiKeys on Amazon, eBay, or any random third-party marketplace.
Which feels counterintuitive. Amazon is where we buy everything. Why is it dangerous?
Supply chain attacks. It's a terrifying possibility. A bad actor could buy a batch of keys, carefully open the packaging, modify the firmware or swap it for a fake one, then reseal it and send it back to an Amazon warehouse.
And because of how Amazon mixes its inventory, you might get that infected key even if you buy from a supposedly reputable seller.
Exactly. When you plug it in, you think you're getting a fresh security key, but you might actually be plugging a spy into your USB port.
That is chilling. So where's the safe place to get them?
Always buy directly from the manufacturer, YubiKey, or use a specifically authorized reseller. The source material mentions Kryptonist as a reliable one for certain regions, but you have to verify the source. It is non-negotiable.
Okay, buy direct. Got it.
Yeah.
Now for the backup nightmare. I'm someone who loses things. Car keys, earbuds, all the time. What happens if I lose my YubiKey? Is there a forgot password button?
No. And I really want everyone listening to hear this. There is no recovery phrase for the YubiKey hardware itself.
Wait, so with a crypto ledger, I have those 24 words. If I lose the ledger, I just buy a new one and type them in. You're saying a YubiKey doesn't have that?
It does not. That is the whole point. The physical key is the secret. If you set up a YubiKey as your only login method, you turn off SMS, you turn off the app, and you lose that key, you are locked out permanently.
So if I drop it down a storm drain, my Google account is gone forever?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Depending on the service, recovery can be a months-long nightmare or just flat out impossible.
Okay, you've scared me. So what is the strategy?
Redundancy. It's simple. You never buy just one. You must buy at least two. I'd say 3 is even better.
Walk us through how you set that up.
Okay, you get key A and key B. Key A goes on your keychain, that's your daily driver. Key B goes into a fireproof safe or maybe a trusted family member's house.
And how do they link? You don't clone them, right?
No, you can't clone them. You have to register both keys with every single service. So you sit down at Google, you go to security settings, you say add key. You plug in key A, then you click add another key and you plug in key B.
So Google knows that both of these unique keys are valid for my account.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like having 2 different physical keys that both happen to open the same front door.
So when I inevitably lose key A...
You don't panic. You go to your safe, get key B, you log in, and then this is the critical part. You immediately go into your settings and delete the lost key A's access. Then you buy a new one and register it as your new backup.
It seems like a hassle, but I guess the alternative is losing everything.
It's the cost of real security. You wouldn't drive around without a spare tire, right? This is the spare tire for your entire digital life.
Speaking of hassle, I did notice some chatter in the sources about the Binance mobile app specifically.
Yes, that's a specific pain point. It seems that while Binance supports YubiKey heavily on their website, the support on the mobile app can be spotty depending on your region and app version.
So if I turn on YubiKey protection for Binance, I might not be able to trade on my phone.
You might be able to view things, but you could be blocked from withdrawing or changing security settings unless you're on a desktop. For some people, that's actually a feature. It forces you to HODL. But for active traders, it's a friction point to be aware of.
It really forces you to be deliberate.
And that's the whole theme, isn't it? Deliberate security.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a massive amount of ground here.
We have.
Let's just recap the big takeaways. 1, passwords and SMS are basically dead, too vulnerable. 2, the YubiKey uses origin binding to stop phishing cold. It knows if a site is fake. 3, it is not a crypto wallet. It protects your access. 4, it doesn't fix a virus-infected computer, and never, ever buy from Amazon. And the golden rule, buy a backup key, or risk locking yourself out forever.
That is a perfect summary.
We want to give a huge thank you to Maxim Anisimov and the team at bytework.com for the incredibly detailed article that was the backbone for this.
Absolutely. The technical detail there is fantastic for anyone who wants to go deeper.
And now we have a request for you, the listener. If you found this deep dive valuable, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. It really helps us get this information out there.
And we really want to hear from you in the comments. Let us know. What do you think about these security rules? Is the inconvenience of carrying a physical key worth the safety? Or does the fear of losing the key scare you more than the hackers do?
That is the ultimate trade-off, isn't it? Convenience versus security.
It always is.
Before we go, we always like to leave you with one final thought, something to chew on.
We talked about backups for yourself, but let's talk about inheritance. If you have a YubiKey protecting your life savings, your crypto, your family photos, and something happens to you tomorrow, does your spouse know where that backup key is? Do they know the PIN code to use it?
Oof. That's a heavy thought.
It is. But if they don't, that security key doesn't just keep out hackers, it keeps out your family. It becomes a permanent, unbreakable lock on your digital legacy.
That is a powerful place to end. Go make a plan, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.
Stay secure.